I don't know about you, but I know for me, sometimes I kind of forget that life is good. And I don't always see that life is good. But today, we are going to have the opportunity to give us some tools and suggestions about how we could recognize that life is good. That how we could always be in expectation that life is good. And today's topic for the topic for today, this morning, see, I'm already jumping ahead. Maybe that's why I'm missing some of those leads, right? So today's talk being presented by Reverend Joanne and Reverend Ken is expecting leads. So expecting those leads, and then when you see the lead, actually following the direction of those leads that are showing up for us all of the time. So let's welcome Reverend Ken and Reverend Joanne up to the front.
Like magic, just raised up there. All right, don't you love a little bit of rain that we got? And the wind, wasn't it fabulous? It was great. I was so happy to see it. But I just want you to know I prayed for that. I called it in. I did. I talked to CSO, our Chief Spiritual Officer, and I said, I really like wind and rain, and we're supposed to get more today, so I love how that happens. Ask and it is given. So this month, Reverend Ken and myself are sharing what we have learned, kind of the amazing juice, the delightful green smoothie. How many of you like green smoothies? Okay, so the real beauty and the juice of this amazing book that we started several months ago called The Path to Wealth. And in this particular book, each week we are sharing one of the 7 spiritual steps. And I'm not going to ask you, I asked last week how many of you remembered all the steps, and no one remembered all the steps. So I'm just going to share with you, just in one sentence, step 1 is to read something inspirational every day. Step 2 is to write a gratitude letter for the good that you have, so you're counting your blessings, but also for the good that you know is already in your life, even though you haven't quite seen it yet. You're being grateful ahead of time. Step 3 is to speak with emotion, to put some feeling and passion into your speaking. Number 4, and this was last week, using our imagination to envision, to feel, to see, to touch, to taste the good that we desire. And today, of course, is all about expecting leads and following directions from CSO. So how many of you always follow the directions of anything? No one raised their hand. Someone's one of us. Okay, so maybe. My wife. Oh yes. Smart man. Happy wife. Okay, we know that. Good. I don't know. They don't have one that rhymes with husband. Why is that? Maybe that explains some things. So Walt Disney, who remembers Walt? Walt Disney said this, and I quote, "All of our dreams can come true if we have the courage to pursue them." Who has the courage to pursue their dreams? Who's willing to have the courage? Oh, someone's kind of like, the willingness to pursue our dreams. So today we are exploring the tools of following leads from CSO, our Chief Spiritual Officer, and the idea of positive expectation. And so first, in order to receive the leads that you're going to receive, which you are receiving, as Reverend Pat so beautifully said, all the time, the leads are showing up. The directive is happening. The question is, are we listening? That's why we have 2 ears and 1 mouth. We're supposed to listen twice as much as we speak, right? Did you notice that? 1, 2 here and 1 here. Okay. Too busy talking. Okay. So we are to follow our leads, and we do that first, of course, by asking. So we have a heart's desire, and we would like to receive it, so we ask for leads. And the most important thing about that is that you do not have to force it to happen. You are not trying to make it happen. leads and ideas and directive all come completely naturally. And they come in every moment of every day if we are awake to those leads, to those directives from CSO. So we are simply to watch for any signs taking you in the direction of your good. For example, we have someone here that is looking to either have her car repaired or to receive a newer model of one that works really well. And so she can put that out there and see what leads happen, right? So the first most important piece of this, though, is to ask you, what is a sign? What is a lead? And so I thought of this all week, and I wrote some down to share with you. Here we go. Leads and directives. You might actually get an actual sign. We're looking for a sign from God, right? It might actually show up on a billboard. It does. I've had it happen. It does. Okay. So it could be an actual sign. It could be a hunch. What's a hunch?
Intuition.
Yeah, intuition. It could be a flash. So, you know, every single one of these leads, they literally pop up in our mind, in our consciousness, on a sign from somewhere, from the divine, through other people as well. Out of nowhere, it's a flash. All of a sudden, you have this idea. So it could be a flash of thought and idea. It could be a friend you ran into that has a suggestion. I was looking, when I got my apartment, I was looking for a couch, and I told my landlady, I'm looking for a couch, and she said, oh, well, your neighbor has one for sale, and it happens to be the one that makes into a bed, which is exactly what I wanted, because my daughter, I have it waiting. Hello, daughter. I have it waiting for her to come visit. And then when I moved into my new place, you know, I'm not kidding, it matches the wall perfectly. So was that divine, right? So maybe a friend will say something to a friend, to something about a car, and whatever you're looking for, your heart, you know, the whole universe conspires for your good. Okay, it could be an urge, because you are a messenger. Maybe you show up. This happens to me a lot. I'll show up at some place in a line, and I'll happen to say the right thing to the right person at the right time, and I have no clue I'm doing that until they say something. Oh my God, that's exactly what I needed to hear. So it could be an urge. It could be a direction across town. What if you're going to go across the Overlander Bridge, and your guidance says, go the long way around? It's like, I don't want to go the long way around. Go the long way around. I don't want to. So what do? I mud wrestle with the divine. I don't want to go the, okay, I'll go long. And then you find out there was something happened. So it could be a direction across town, right? It could be a stranger passing by that happens to say the right thing. You're going for coffee and someone says something, right? It could be a strong directive and intuition, as someone said back there, clear guidance. It could be a feeling, like what about if you start to feel anxious? I usually ask, is this mine? Because sometimes when you're in with a lot of people, you might, if you're empathetic like I am, you might pick up anxiety, it's not even yours. So you ask, is it mine? Okay. So a feeling, it could be a joy. Anyone have like a burst of joy for no reason? A picture, I get a lot of pictures. So I pay attention to the pictures I get. It could be a clear uncertainty, like this. Do not get on the airplane. How many of you have heard of people that they're all at the airport, and the plane crashes, and someone says, oh my God, something happened, and I was told, I just had this feeling, this terrible, awful feeling not to get on the airplane. So it could be an uncertainty. Don't do this. It could be very clear. So you want to pay attention to all of your guidance, to your directions, and to your leads. And you follow that with this very important step, which is all part of this number 5. And that is to have action faith. We want to have action faith. That means that you actually listen and you actually follow the leads that you get. Our author, Mae McCarthy, says this. She said that this is probably one of the most difficult parts of all the steps, because why? We want to know the answer. We want to know the reason we're getting the directive. Why do I want to go around town? Why do I have to drive the long way around? We want to know. But we're asked to have action faith, to have the faith and the trust in CSO. So we want it also, many of us want it to be logical. We want to know the outcome of our action first and before we commit. So I want to share this very brief story. This actually happened. It was so amazing to me. So I was invited to dinner. I was going to go to a sweat lodge. How many of you have been to a sweat lodge? Quite a few of you. I'm invited to go to a sweat lodge, and before you're allowed to go, you have to kind of meet the leader. So I was invited to dinner to meet the leader, and that very morning I get up, and this voice, this very clear voice says, you're to bring a gift to the leader, and one to his wife, because his wife was going to be there. I said, okay, I have no problem doing that. Where do I get the gift, right? And it says, go to your jewelry box. I'm going to bring something out of my jewelry box to a man. And it just made no logical sense. Go, and I said, there's nothing in my jewelry box that a man would want. I know this already. There's earrings, there's bracelets, there's nothing in there. Go to the jewelry box. So finally I go to the jewelry box, I open it up, and hanging there was a buffalo tooth necklace that I had made, I'm going to say 7 years ago at a powwow. I made this necklace. I love this necklace, but I have no attachment. So I take the necklace off. I go, aha, there is something that a man might like in my jewelry box. So I take it. I'm told to wrap it in turquoise paper. I go to dinner. I give it to the leader. He opens it up, and he literally is speechless. He literally could not say a word. And I didn't know. He didn't say even thank you. He was just completely wordless. Not a word came out of his mouth. So fast forward to the sweat. So I'm in the sweat now. I'm in my sweat dress, my sweat stockings, my sweat socks, and everything. I'm ready to sweat. And this leader likes to share a teaching or a story. And so the first thing he does, he says, I want to tell all of you my name. He says, my Indian name is Buffalo Stone. And that's when I became speechless. I had no idea that was his name, but I was told to give him buffalo teeth, this beautiful necklace. Isn't that amazing? So your leads may not make sense to you, you may not understand them, but you are asked to take action and follow, even if it's not logical. The last part of the thing I'd like to share today is about expectation. And this is what our author says: there is power in expecting results. Some of the best research on this topic is from a professor at Cambridge University, which looked at a relationship between positive expectation and our brain's natural chemical called dopamine, which helps us focus. To me, it sounded dopey. Like dopamine, but it helps us focus, right? So dopamine helps you focus, and it also helps us very clearly maintain a positive outlook. So she said, this will explain to you why happiness is a great state for mental performance, for problem solving, and for receiving our good. It was found that positive, happy people perceive a wider range of data, of solving problems, and come up with more ideas for action. One last way to say this, and this is from those of you who follow Abraham Hicks, and that is called joyous expectation. So you have a heart's desire. What would it be like for you to go around feeling joyously anticipating your good? And to be expecting leads, expecting directive, and knowing it's there. It's already there. We just have to open up our heart to receive it. So to do that, I have a handout for you that Reverend Pat is going to hand out. It's called Get Happy and Stay That Way. And I've also shared this once before, but it's very powerful. You are to find a state of happiness, and you're put yourself in that state of happiness, because that is the state of joyous anticipation or positive expectation. So wonderful little blurb on says, get happy and stay that way. Find a way in every situation to look for the good and to find the happiness. So to sum this up for today, before we give a rowdy welcome to our Reverend Ken, he's going to give you the next part of this. So the question I'll ask is what would you do if you have asked for a lead and it doesn't come? Well, Ken is going to share with you the answer to that important question in his segment. But again, today is all about expecting leads, following directive, and having action faith. You want to have the action faith. And so let's give a rowdy welcome now to our wonderful Reverend Ken.
I was quite sure that there was an error over here. I was convinced that it was exploring leads. And of course, I started doing some work last Sunday and worked along here, and I probably read it many, many times. And exploring leads. So I went to great expense this morning. Does this look like Clouseau? Okay, I guess that's the best I can do. I thought exploring leads was all exciting, but expecting leads is, of course, other. And we do get to the point today. I'm going to actually talk about expecting leads and exploring leads. Now, Reverend Joanne, we don't have a contest about one-upmanship or anything of that sort, but she passed on a little story about hers, and it was extremely powerful. And I thought, well, I can do that too. And it's about my dogs. I have 2 dogs, and that plays a very important part in this. Quick story. I walk my dogs usually 2 or 3 times a day. One of the nice places I go to is Pioneer Park. I like it there. So I get out. Sometimes I'm there at maybe 25 after 5 in the morning, sometimes 6:30, sometimes 7:15, whatever. Anyway, there weren't very many people around yesterday morning. It was kind of interesting, Saturday morning. And so I've got 2 dogs. One is 13 and fairly slow, and one is 5 going on 1. Right? And so I put them on the leashes, and I've got these extended things. I don't even know what they're called, but they can go for quite a ways. And so I got out of my car, and they jump out, and they're ready to go. And I was kind of on the way down talking to CSO and this and that. I said, CSO, what is it that is seeking to be expressed through me today? Because a lot of my walking with the dogs and things, I'm kind of engaged. And so I'm doing this, what is it that I'm seeking to, or what is it that is seeking to be expressed in, through, and as me today? And I'm kind of walking. And there's a tree right there. Duality. What did both dogs do? They went on opposite sides of the tree. Now, this is not the first time it's happened. However, and it won't be the last. And then, I sort of straddled, whatever. But anyway, the timing, I hooted. Come on, CSO. I don't know if anybody was around, but I'm saying, what is it that point me? I'm asking for a lead. What is it that today is wanting to express in bigger ways? And my dogs go on a separate path, right? It's about separation, and for that moment I was absolutely engaged, and no, you got to be kidding. And of course, one of the major issues is being separate from good, and you know that. So that was a beautiful affirmation that just went bang, bang, zing, zang. It was lovely. And I got the message, and I could almost go home. But the dogs were off and running, so I had to scoop the one lead around and, do that with the dogs. So these leads, they can kind of come up. And yeah, there's some exploring there. We did our exploring, but expecting leads is very important. But they can come at you, like Reverend Joanne, driving down, and all of a sudden you look up and there's a word or whatever there, and it means something to you if we're awake to it. Now, today, I've kind of used up about 4 minutes of my time. But I want to tell 2 stories. And they're ones that I think kind of really zero in on this idea about expecting leads and following directions. So the first story is fairly recent, and there are people here who probably have been part of that first story. And being that you're here, you are part of the first story, albeit a little bit later in your entry. So I'm going to start today with an example of a true story here that happened to us right here in Desert Gardens, to the Center for Spiritual Living, Kamloops. And how many of you remember Reverend Connie? How many of you attended here, Reverend Connie? Okay, so I'm going back a little bit. Who wasn't here when Reverend Connie was here? Okay, well, I'll make it painless. It's going to be nice. I hope that. Anyway, for those of you who are new, it'll be a little bit of interesting history, I think. Anyway, way back, and this was before my time, but the Sunday celebrations were held at the Legion building on Lansdowne Street. And I think the Legion moved away and now they moved back, but it's right near Franklin's, right across from Cooper's, 2-story building, we used to walk up, and our services were held in the upper area. Now, Reverend Connie had a 3-story Sahali townhouse, and the office was held on the lowest floor. So when you went down there, it was a classroom, it was an office, everything like that was happening there. Now, Reverend Connie left at the end of October 2010. She actually left on the 31st. And we had moved out of our upstairs Sunday celebration place, and we had gone right in to the Mojave room, which is right next door to us. And that was where we were holding our celebrations, our Sunday celebrations. So we were there on Sundays, and we were in Reverend Connie's basement, or lower level. Quite nice, had an open, big, wide windows and stuff. It was a lovely classroom. Now, so she left. So how many of you did a little bit of moving at that time? Helping out, yeah. I can remember that day. It was quite exciting. So, Reverend Connie is leaving, and the office and all of that stuff, the functioning was all in her basement, in the lowest floor. So we obviously need to get things cleared out. So we rented a storage unit in Valley View. I forget what it's called. It's out there by the CIBC. And a lot of the things that were in her basement, some were hers, but also many were the center's. So we had no space to move to. So we rented this area, and it's up about 3 floors and whatever, and we trucked it all out there, and we opened it all up, and we filled it, and it did get full. We had a lot of things there. Other materials kind of were passed on to other folks. But anyway, had the storage area, and Reverend Lana and husband Tom were good enough, I think, to accept a fair degree of office functioning. And I can remember trying to pack, actually, with Sandy's husband, Andy. Remember the end of a long day, he and I, he's much younger than I am. But anyway, we were carting in the copier at about 5 o'clock that afternoon, and it was getting tired. So I know that Lana and Tom had inherited a fair amount of this office function. So Connie's last day was a Sunday, and we were expecting Reverend Marcia and her husband, or her now husband, her partner Rick, to arrive on the 1st of November. And interestingly, they found a place out in West Side. They had a beautiful tile floor, and that area began to be the, well, let's say the birthplace of Heartbeat, because both Rick and Marcia were very good musicians, and they had this beautiful space, and that was where they had their practicing. So the musical function, which was live, we had not had live music, but with their arrival, it happened. So, Reverend Marcia and Rick's time with us was about 6 weeks. And on December the 12th, after kind of being threatened that they were supposed to arrive with all their things in a Soyuz, because border services hadn't liked what conversations had been happening. This was the time when the early legislation about employment and things were very restrictive about people coming into Canada, etc., and all that political stuff. So they crossed the border into Bellingham, and we had been unable to find the right responses, so we had to say goodbye to them. So here we are with Reverend Marcia and Rick leaving us, and we have no minister, and we had no office space, and what were we to do? So Reverend Connie left. Some of the functions, of course, got passed out to Reverend Lana, and but then other things really were kind of left and were just sitting. We didn't keep them up. Now, with our center left without a resident minister, Reverend Pat, well, I'll just say Science of Mind senior students, there was myself and Lana and Pat, and a group of dedicated congregants and we took on the leadership at that time. Now, we were still without confirmed office space, and I think the music team at that point moved and went to Pam and Rial's basement, did you not, for a while, so that music shifted. And also, much of the administration and kind of the talking happened at a restaurant called Hello Toast, over breakfast or lunch, as the case may be. We almost had a cease to pass there, didn't we? And at one time, we won't mention, but we talked about getting an apartment because we were spending so much time together, Lana and Pat and myself, that why don't we just live together, then we can get it all sorted out. But that's another story, and I won't go there. And also, just so happens about two doors down, Reverend Pat had her bookstore, and it had a couple of big Chesterfields. So much of the business at the early time, without the minister, was held there at Hello Toast and at the bookstore. So it was called Seat of the Pants, I think. This is how things were when divine nudging appeared on a dark February night as Pat and Lana and I were returning from a class in Kelowna. It's quite dark. Somewhere between Vernon and Westwold, there was a nudge. And the nudge was that we were supposed to take advantage of the space where we are now. That office space we had been told was becoming available to us. But we were so focused, I think, from my recollection, on minister, that we hadn't really considered that our bigger plan was minister plus office space. Because we had a little drib and drab over there with the music team. Out there on Ord Road, we had some office functioning. We were kind of here and there. All of a sudden, on reflection, one of the big things that came up was office space plus minister. We were looking at minister, but lo and behold, we have the opportunity of the office space right there, right now. So we kind of changed things a little bit. We were certainly nudged. And as it's turned out, we purchased that. And a little bit later on, we agreed to the rental. There was also a small office with a couple of walls in there. And it really sort of reduced the amount of space that we had. So another nudge was that we should take those walls down, which we did, and we now got our open area, which serves a multi-function things. So we said yes to two nudges. Now, 3,200 years ago, I wasn't around at the time, but this is according to our book. This is now written up as part of this Expecting Leaves and Following Directions. There was a fellow named Gideon, and Gideon was a fairly meek, mild, young Jewish lad who was approached by God and said, Gideon, there are 100,000 savage neighboring tribes out there, and we want you to lead the army of Israel against them. I beg your pardon? So, this is not something in his background. I mean, he was used to farming. He wasn't at all a leader of that sort. Anyway, he decided, frighteningly, he said, it wasn't just one test. It wasn't just two tests. It was three tests that Gideon put God to because he was so frightened of this idea of leading the nation of Israel against these folks. So he said, okay, and here it is at great expense, consider this to be a beautiful piece of fleece. So he said, God, tonight I want to be able to put this down on the ground, and in the morning, here's the first test. And I'll kind of believe you, as it turned out, I'll believe you if when I come back in the morning that the ground is dry and the fleece is wet. Okay, so God said, okay, we'll humor the boy. This is CSO. Okay, so when he came out in the morning, sure enough, that's what it was. What did I say? Ground dry? Ground dry. This wet. He said, okay, tonight though, I'm going to make it the opposite. Tonight we're going to put it down, and in the morning I want to make sure that we have the ground is wet and this fleece is dry. And sure enough, that's what happened. So he was actually quite afraid that God was going to be angry with him about questioning all of this. And this is where May McCarthy comes in, because one of her major pieces in this issue about expecting leads and following directions, there's no inclusion there of you being you, me being me, and being worrisome. We are always entitled to more information and that sort of thing. And God, theoretically, is never cross. Now, the deal is, though, that if you ask for further clarification, the deal is that Spirit, that CSO, will always follow through with some sort of indication. And the deal is, though, that if you've asked and it's been provided, then you have to follow through with at least one step to take you closer to your good. Now, I'm going to let you look up Gideon in the Bible if you're interested. It's an interesting story, a very interesting story, and it was wonderful for me to kind of look back into it. So this idea of throwing the fleece, just try that, or pulling a Gideon, is May McCarthy's idea of how she confirms what it is that she understands that God wants her to do. So that, have I finished? I think so. No, I've got one more thing. Just do it. This isn't directly related to that, but does this remind you of is it Adidas or Nike? Well, I didn't do the research, but they come up with Just Do It. And in that chapter, that very chapter, at a certain point, you're encouraged to just do it. And we kind of found that when this opportunity for the office came up, even though we weren't kind of thinking about it, we just did it. So thank you very much.